Good morning, boys and girls. I'm Eleanor Hawkins, and welcome to Telestory Time. The library, a magic castle. Come to the magic castle when you are growing tall. Rows upon rows of word windows line every single wall. They reach up high as the sky, and you want to open them all, for every time you open one, a new adventure has begun. The library, a magic castle. And boys and girls, this morning, we're talking about the beautiful sky of stars and shooting stars. And the very first story that I want to read to you this morning is from my old reader way back in the 30s. And the story I've chosen from it is entitled The Star Dipper. Many years ago, there lived a little girl who was very kind. She and her mother lived in a small house near a big woods. One very warm night, her mother was sick. "How I wish I had a drink of fresh, cool water," said the sick woman. "I will get you some water, Mother," said the little girl. So she took a dipper from the kitchen and ran to the well. But she could not get any water. The well was dry. "What shall I do?" said the little girl. "If my poor sick mother does not have a cool drink, she cannot go to sleep. I will run to the spring in the woods. It is very dark tonight, but I will not be afraid." Down the road she ran to the woods. Now there was no moon, and she could hardly see where she was going. It was not easy to find the path among the trees. Once a little girl fell down, but she jumped up quickly. The stones hurt her feet, but she ran on and on. "I must not think about myself now," she said. "I must find the spring." At last she found the spring and filled her dipper. Then she started back through the woods. On the way home she met a little dog. He looked at the dipper of water and began to bark. The little girl knew that he wanted a drink. "Come, little dog," she said. "I'll give you a fresh, cool drink." She poured part of the water into her hand, and the little dog quickly drank every drop. Boys and girls, then a strange thing happened. The old dipper changed to shining silver. It was as bright as the silver moon. Now the little girl could see the path through the dark woods. She hurried on, and soon she met an old man. "Little girl, can you tell me where I can get a drink of nice cool water?" he asked. "Oh, I have walked a long way to find some, but all the wells are dry." "Well, now I got some from a spring," said the little girl. "I was taking it to my sick mother, but I will give it to you. I can go back and get some more." The old man drank all the water from her dipper, and as he drank, the silver dipper changed to shining gold. Oh, it was as bright as the sun, and made a great light among the dark shadows in the woods. Then the little girl could see the path back to the spring. She filled the golden dipper and hurried home. "Oh, here's a cool drink," she said, as she gave the golden dipper to her mother. "Oh, how good this water is," said her mother. And she drank and drank until there was not one drop left in the dipper. "Oh, thank you, my dear," said the sick woman. "I can go to sleep now." Boys and girls, suddenly a wonderful thing happened. The golden dipper changed to diamonds. Then the diamonds went high up into the sky and turned into 7 bright stars. Well, they looked just like a Big Dipper. Now that was a long time ago, but the Big Star Dipper is still in the sky today, and we can see it on a very clear evening. And boys and girls, that is the story of the Star Dipper. And now, boys and girls, stay tuned, and we'll be back in just a moment to read from our big Do You Know book. Stay tuned. And now, boys and girls, I'm going to read from my big Do You Know book. Do you know all about the stars? Do you know 9 planets, including Earth, travel around the sun? These planets, together with the sun, form the solar system. Do you know the sun is a star just like the other stars you see at night? Do you know the sun is hotter, bigger, brighter, and more massive than most of the other stars? The sun is the closest star to Earth, and it would take a rocket about 155 days to even reach our sun. Do you know our sun and Earth are part of a big family of stars and planets? The family is called the Milky Way galaxy. Do you know stars have colors? The sun is a yellow-orange star. Blue stars are hotter than even the sun, and red stars are not as hot as the sun. Do you know when you look in the night sky, some stars seem to form a picture? Groups of stars that look like pictures are called constellations. Do you know when you look up at the sky on a very clear night, you can find a pot with a long handle, the Big Dipper, and you know very near the Big Dipper is the Little Dipper. And boys and girls, you might be sure and look for the Big Dipper that was in our story this morning, maybe tonight. Do you know how many stars are in the heavens? Billions and billions, and you know new ones are always forming all the time. Do you know a shooting star or a meteor is a streak of light which appears in the sky when debris from the solar system enters Earth's atmosphere? August is the very best month to look for shooting stars. Oh, it's so much fun to watch for shooting stars. Be sure and watch tonight if it isn't cloudy. Boys and girls, be sure and visit your public library sometime during this next week and check out some very good books from the Craven, Pamlico, Carteret Regional Library System. Check out a book on your very own library card and enjoy maybe reading about stars. And now stay tuned, and we'll be back with another story entitled Shooting Stars. Stay tuned. And now, boys and girls, get very comfortable and ready to listen to the story, Shooting Stars. A night when the sky is clear, look for shooting stars. You can see them as soon as the sky is dark. At first, you might not see any. You just have to keep looking. Lie down and gaze at the sky for an hour or so. You're almost sure to see at least one an hour. Maybe you'll see more than one. One time I saw so many it was hard to count them. A shooting star is not a star. Long ago, people called many things in the night sky some kind of a star. When they saw a planet, they called it a wandering star. They called comets long-haired stars. When they saw a streak of light, they thought a star was falling out of the sky. They called it a falling star or a shooting star. Scientists call them meteors. The word comes from a Greek word meaning something in the air. If you could catch a falling star, you would discover that it is a small bit of ash or solid material like rock or metal. It might be no larger than a grain of sand. It is called a meteoroid. When a meteoroid makes a light streak in the sky, it is called a meteor. A meteoroid gets very hot. That's because it rubs against the air as it travels toward Earth. It gets hot just as your hands do when you rub them together. The meteoroid gets hot enough to produce light. That's the light you see when you see a shooting star. Many of the meteoroids that fall toward Earth are so small they don't make a light streak, or they may fall during the day when the sky is so bright that we can't see the light streak. Some scientists think that 100 tons of them fall on Earth every day. Most of them fall into the oceans. When you're outside, some of them may fall on you, but you don't feel them because many are little more than a floating speck of dust. When a meteoroid strikes Earth, the moon, or another planet, it is called a meteorite. Most meteorites are very small. A few are as large as a marble or even a baseball. Some are very large. One of the largest ever found is in New York City at the American Museum of Natural History. You can see it there. It was found in Greenland, where the Eskimos called it all-night Ilo, the 10th. It is mostly iron and it weighs more than 34 tons. The Eskimos made iron knives from pieces of this meteorite. And there it is. Just see how big it is with those boys and girls. Sometimes meteorites hit houses. In 1982, one that weighed 6 pounds crashed through the roof of a house in Wethersfield, Connecticut. It was traveling over 1,000 miles an hour. That was fast enough for it to go right through the ceiling and roll under the dining room table. Now, 11 years earlier, in 1971, another meteorite went through the roof of a different house in that same town. That one weighed a little less than a pound. No one was hit by either of those meteorites, but in 1954, Mrs. Hewlett Hodges, who lived in Alabama, was hit in the thigh by a meteorite that came right through her ceiling. That one weighed about 10 pounds. Her thigh was black and blue for quite a while. Now, don't worry about being hit by a meteorite. Mrs. Hodges was the first and only person in the United States ever hit by one. In the last 500 years, only a dozen people in the whole wide world have been hit by a meteorite. Many meteorites have fallen on buildings, and many have dug deep holes or craters in the earth. This crater that you see in this picture is near Winslow, Arizona. It is 4,150 feet wide and 600 feet deep. You can walk around it or you can climb down to the bottom. Meteorites have also fallen on the moon. In the picture you can see that the moon is covered with craters. Many of them were made when large meteorites crashed into the moon a long, long ago. Mercury and Mars also have lots of craters. Many of them were dug by meteorites. Meteorites are visitors from outer space. Billions of dust particles, stones, and rocks are in orbit around the sun. Some of them have been there since Earth began. Many of the bits of ash and dust were left behind by comets as they traveled through space. When Earth moves through these clouds of particles, they make shooting stars, sometimes so many that they fill the sky. Keep watching for shooting stars. They seem to be far away, but most of them are less than 60 miles above the Earth. One night you may see one that seems a lot closer. You may be able to trace where it lands. You might even find the meteorite. That's what happened in Mexico. In 1969, people saw a sky full of shooting stars. Later, almost 2 tons of meteorites were found by people who saw them land. That is very unusual. Remember first, when you look into a clear, dark sky, you may not see any shooting stars. But keep watching. On a warm night, lie down and gaze at the sky. If you're lucky, you might see 3 or 4 an hour, especially during the next few weeks of August. Now, when you see one, make a wish. Some people say that wishes come true when they are made on a shooting star. Who knows? Maybe they are right. Maybe you might try it tonight if it's a clear, dark night. And that is the story, Shooting Stars. And now, boys and girls, stay tuned, and we'll be back in just a moment. And now, boys and girls, I'm going to read from my old Elson Basic Reader that I've had for many years. And I'm going to read you the story, The Old Woman and the Cakes. Once a little old woman was baking cakes. She was wearing a black dress and a small white apron. On her head was a red cap. A poor old man came to her kitchen door and said, "Oh, I am a hungry good woman. Please give me one of your cakes." The old woman said, "These cakes are too large to give away. I will bake you a little cake. That will be plenty for you." So she made a very small cake. She rolled it and rolled it. Then she patted it and put it into the oven. But the cake began to grow bigger and bigger. "Oh, I will keep this cake," said the old woman. "It is too big to give away." So she kept the cake for herself. Then she made a tiny little cake. She rolled it and patted it until it was very, very thin. "This will be large enough for you," she said as she put it into the oven. But it began to grow bigger too. "Oh, I will not give you this cake," said the old woman. "I want it myself. It is much too big for a fellow like you." So she kept that cake for herself. She tried again. This time she made a tiny flat cake as small as a bean. But that cake began to grow too. It grew bigger and bigger and bigger. "I will not give you a cake at all," said the old woman. "These cakes are just too big to give away. I want to eat them myself." So the poor old man went away hungry. The old woman swept her kitchen and sat down alone to eat the cakes. Now, boys and girls, comes the strangest part of the story. As the old woman was eating, she began to grow smaller and smaller and smaller. Her nose became a sharp bill. She looked at her arms and saw that they had been changed to black wings, and her feet were sharp claws. She was still wearing the black dress and the white apron and the red cap, but they were all feathers. She had been changed into a bird. Now perhaps you will see this little old woman someday. She hops up and down trees, hunting for bugs and worms. You will know her when you see her. You will say, "There is the black dress and the little white apron that she was wearing in her kitchen, and on her head is the red cap too." For people say that the old woman who would not give away even one tiny cake was changed into a woodpecker. And boys and girls, when you see a woodpecker, you can think of this old story that I read from my old reader. And now, boys and girls, I see I have time enough to read from this big book. And it's something very special that I want you to listen to. And most of all of you have heard this all during your life. It's the poem, "Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star" by Jane Taylor. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are, up above the world so high, like a diamond in the sky. When the blazing sun is set, and the grass with dew is wet, then you show your little light, twinkle, twinkle, all the night. Then the traveler in the dark thanks you for your tiny spark. He could not see where to go if you did not twinkle so. In the dark blue sky you keep, and often through my curtains peep, for you must never shut your eye till the sun is in the sky. As your bright and tiny spark lights the traveler in the dark, though I know not where you are, twinkle, twinkle, little star. And here is a tiny little poem that is entitled Stars. I'm glad the stars are over me and not beneath my feet, where we should trample on them like cobbles on the street. I think it is a happy thing that they are set so far. It's best to have to look up high when you want to see a star. And now, boys and girls, I see I have time enough to read you from my poetry book, All About Books. And the first one I'd like to read is entitled Summer Doings. Some at beaches, some are sand casting, some are silly, fighting, wrestling. Some are swimming, camping, hiking. Some say stickball is their liking. Some on bikes are gaily speeding. Some are smarter, their summer reading. And here it shows the sandcastle on this side of the page. And then we have this one. Good books, good times. Good books, good times. Good stories, good rhymes. Good beginnings, good ends. Good people, good friends. Good fiction, good facts. Good adventures, good acts. Good stories, good rhymes. Good books, good times. And then I turn over to another page where we have I met a dragon face to face. I met a dragon face to face the year when I was 10. I took a trip to outer space. I braved a pirate's den. I wrestled with a wicked troll and fought a great white shark. I trailed a rabbit down a hole. I hunted for a snark. I stowed aboard a submarine. I opened magic doors. I traveled in a time machine and searched for dinosaurs. I climbed atop a giant's head. I found a pot of gold. I did it all in books I read when I was 10 years old. And so now I see it's time for me to close our book of stories for this morning. Until next Saturday morning, this is Eleanor Hawkins saying bye-bye for Telestory Time.